I'm here to present about the value of surfing. That was sort of the category I wanted to present at this conference. And in terms of the value of surfing, I'm focusing specifically on the economics. And so what I mean by that is the value that surf tourism served as an economic lifeline in the wake of the socio-political upheaval starting in April 18th in 2018, and that was in Nicaragua. For those of you who are not familiar with where Nicaragua is, I know it's on the other side of the world, so I wanted to provide you guys with a map. My laser pointer is working, so that's good. As you guys can see, Nicaragua is nestled between Honduras and El Salvador to the north and Costa Rica to the south. And in terms of where I'm going to specifically focus my case study for today is going to be in this area here, Popoyo. All of these are surf regions, so to speak. But I'm going to focus mainly on the area of Popoyo. You may hear me call it the Popoyo area, or more broadly, the Emerald Coast. There's 4 things I want to talk to you guys about today. First and foremost, I want to give you guys a brief history of Nicaragua and what gets us to this socio-political upheaval. I want to talk about what I've defined as surf transnationalism. And then I want to talk about also, in that, provide you all with some surf tourism data to sort of substantiate what I'm talking about. And then end with something Nick and I guess sort of virtually Tom mentioned, but I'm defining it as a surf travel ethos. And that's really this desire that surfers have to go to great lengths to surf uncrowded world-class waves. And that's going to play a major role in why surfing is the lifeline in this particular situation. So to give you guys a brief history, I don't know how familiar everybody is with the history of Nicaragua, but in 1979, there was a Sandinista revolution that deposed a 43-year-long U.S.-backed dictatorship. It was the Somoza dynasty. So that came to an end in 1979, which ushered in the Sandinista government from 1979 to 1990. In 1990, this was sort of a big turning point or watershed moment for Nicaragua because a more U.S. sympathetic government came into power, and with that came neoliberalist economic policies, and that's going to have a major effect on how this transnational surf space begins to grow. Fast forwarding to 2006, Daniel Ortega, who was the president during the Sandinista government, he is re-elected and still is to this day in power in Nicaragua. Again, that's going to be part of the reason that in 2018, due to a number of policies legislated by Ortega and the Sandinista government, a whole host, hundreds of thousands of Nicaraguans took to the street to protest these policies that were legislated. And so, just to stress the magnitude of this protest, I was there for most of it in Nicaragua. The Pan American Highway was shut down. As you guys can see, there were roadblocks. Again, it paralyzed the Nicaraguan economy. And beyond that, the United States put it at a level 4 in terms of a travel threat. So for many Americans that wanted to go to Nicaragua, it sort of took it off the map. And they opted for Costa Rica and even places like El Salvador. Nevertheless, surfing will be the lifeline for this country. I've been throwing around this term transnationalism. For many of you guys who are unfamiliar with it, I define it by using Stephen Verdebeck's transnationalism. And it's really just the multiple ties and interactions linking people or institutions across borders of nation states. In other words, it's just the movement of individuals, and I'm going to use that framework and apply it to surfing. So the movement of surfers across international borders. To talk about it in the context of the Popoyo area, I'm going to use just a quick quote from my friend Lindsay Usher and then Deborah Kerstetter's article, Surfistas Locales, talking specifically about the development of the Popoyo area. Although Nicaraguans from Managua first served the area in the early 1980s without much interaction from with the local community, most Americans did not arrive until the late 1990s. Some decided to stay and start surf businesses. This will begin the start of what I'm referring to as this transnational or surf transnational community. So surfers, because of a whole host of different reasons, came to Nicaragua with and after 1990, bought property, found world-class uncrowded waves, and decided to set up surf camps and other establishments. Just a brief timeline here of the evolution of the Popoyo area. In 1991, there was the establishment under the Chamorro government of private property laws that gave foreigners all the rights that Nicaraguans would have with regards to buying private property. That's huge when you think about a foreigner setting up a surf camp and things like that. They reaped all the benefits of a Nicaraguan national when it came to the purchase of private property. Going into the mid-90s and into the late 90s, this is when surfers who were sort of tired of maybe the higher cost in Costa Rica, or to go back to Nick's presentation, tired of crowds, and wanted to venture into this quote-unquote new frontier that hadn't been explored for a whole host of different reasons, and that place was Nicaragua. And so infrastructure began to pop up, surf camps, restaurants, etc., and that led us all the way to 2015, where it was there was such a need that the area built an airport. And so this is going to play a major role in what happens in 2018, because it's going to provide individuals a way to circumvent all of the roadblocks and everything else that would challenge them in terms of getting to the beach. And so that brings me to 2018, where in April of 2018, to take you back to the first or second slide, people took to the streets to protest a number of policies legislated by the Ortega government. And that there was just, from that point forward, massive upheaval. Again, just to reiterate the fact, it was the country was listed as a level 4 threat for travel by the United States. And again, the Pan American Highway, if anybody's familiar with that, it's not a very big road. It was shut down. There was grocery stores without food. There was no access to gas, and when there was, it shot up to $10 a gallon. And so this was a major economic crisis as well. So from 2018 to 2019, my argument is that surf tourism, believe it or not, serves as an economic lifeline due in large part to what I define as the surf travel ethos. And many of us probably can relate to that. It's that desire, particularly if you've been surfing Snapper Rocks enough and you're tired of the crowds, you'd love to go somewhere where it's empty waves, world-class waves, warm water. And so the surf magazines and others are going to sort of tap into this ethos to encourage surfers from all across the world, including this part of the world, to go to Nicaragua and enjoy uncrowded world-class waves. So just to kind of segue into some articles, I'm going to give you guys some anecdotal evidence, and then I'm going to give you briefly give you some data to support what I'm saying. So McClatchy in 2018, again, July of 2018, just after this socio-political upheaval, does an article, and this is just a quote from the article. Yes, there's problems in Nicaragua, and surfers are aware of it. And it says, absolutely come. This country relies on it. And you're going to see why in just a second. Times Colonist in 2018, shortly thereafter, says surfers are explorers by nature, something we've talked about earlier this morning. They look for adventure and empty waves. Stab Magazine, a magazine I'm sure you guys are well aware of, they published a whole host of articles. And let me stop and say, these articles, particularly Stab Magazine, if you go and read a lot of the comments, these are contentious things to say. In other words, you're talking about a country that is in socio-political unrest, and you have articles encouraging people to go take advantage of uncrowded waves. So this was quite contentious, but nevertheless, surfing does provide an economic lifeline to this place. And so I think you guys can see that photo there. That's a barrel shot from one of the beach breaks in Nicaragua. And Stab Magazine says, this is the caption actually from this photo. Nica possesses some of the most fun sand-bottom tubes in the world, and it tends to get proper crowded. If tourism ain't booming, and you don't mind a little political turmoil, might be worth booking a trip. Again, tapping into that surf travel ethos, saying, I know as a surfer and an adventurer, You're willing to go above and beyond to get to good waves. And if this doesn't bother you, if going around some roadblocks or flying into a different airport or going to Costa Rica and then flying into the Emerald Coast doesn't bother you, this is probably one of the few chances you're going to get to surf these empty barrels. Fast forward to 2020, this was an interview, a phone interview I did with the president of the National Chamber of Tourism of Nicaragua. Her name is Lucy Valenti, who's provided me with so much information to make this presentation possible. She said in a phone interview, surfing was the only activity that survived the crisis. And you're going to see that in a second when I provide you with some data from the the Nicaraguan Institute of Tourism. I know I only have 15 minutes, so don't worry, I'm not going to get data crazy with you guys. But I do want to highlight that, as you can see here, in 2018, Nicaragua's tourism sector plummeted down negative 35.2%. That's pretty substantial. A negative 35.2 hit in revenue. That said, as you can see, yes, it took a major hit, but from 2015 forward, tourism begins to take first place in terms of the generator of revenue for Nicaragua. So from 2015 onward, tourism in Nicaragua is the major generator of revenue for this country. Again, these are just, I wanted to provide you guys with some data for if you want to check it out. But what I want to draw your attention to most to substantiate some of the anecdotal things I was saying from the magazines is right here. Right in the height of the crisis, surfing is the #1 reason travelers to Nicaragua claim they're coming to Nicaragua. In other words, surf tourism, above and beyond, when you see 2 and 3, there's the only other 2 are hiking and climbing volcanoes. Surfing in 2018 is the main reason individuals are coming to Nicaragua in terms of tourism. Now, since I'm over here in Australia, I really want to just put this out there. Maybe you guys can inform me as to what was going on here. If you'll notice, in 2016, 2017, only 6.6% of Australians said that their reason for going to Nicaragua is tourism. In 2018, 46.2% of people from this part of the world who went to Nicaragua said they're going to surf. Now, this might be something, a good point of academic inquiry for anybody who wants to look into it, or maybe there's just a simple reason why. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Whereas, as you can see, North Americans drop, but over here in South America has an increase in terms of their reasons for coming. My concluding thoughts are that surf tourism helped to mitigate many of the crippling economic effects suffered by other tourism sectors in 2018 and 2019. This elucidates the economic value of surfing for these transnational surf spaces, as well as for Nicaragua's overall gross domestic product. Here's a number of resources that I used, and again, I just want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be here.